Hello, welcome back to another video. So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to use the Berhinger TD-3 analog synthesizer with Ableton. So we will be looking into how to input MIDI into a clip and for it to play from the TD-3 itself. For me with the TD-3 it was a little bit confusing not being able to see the notes visually themselves from this. Obviously you can make patterns from the TD-3 if you've got one yourself, you'll know that. That it has that function. However, I think it's much easier, especially when you're using it to produce a track and not just to kind of have fun with it. It's easier for me personally to see the notes on the screen. So I'll go through what you'll need in order to make it work with Ableton. Okay, so what you do need is a 1/4" jack cable. This goes into your interface, so this is another thing you'll need is an audio interface. One that I use is the Focusrite iTrack Solo. You'll also need a USB-A, which looks like this, and that goes into just a normal USB point here, and then obviously your power cable as well. So if we open up Ableton, what you will need is a MIDI channel. Now for the MIDI channel you want to import an external instrument. Now if you go to your system preferences, first of all go to audio, make sure your input device is your interface, obviously, because that's how the sound is coming through with the 1/4" jack audio cable, and then your output would also be your interface as well if you're using monitor speakers. So let's go to link, tempo and MIDI. So here you want to have the input section and select TD-3, and at the bottom here you'll see input ports, output ports. Now if you just click the buttons that I have clicked here you shouldn't have an issue. So track and remote, both for input and output. Now this means when we go to the external instrument down here, MIDI to, it should come up TD-3. Audio from, so in the interface that I showed you how it's got the microphone input, so that's input 1, and then the jack input, which is input 2, so that would be like this. To test that, all you would do, if you don't know what input it is, put in a few notes, play them, and then once you get here you'll be able to see where the sound is coming from the green bar. Now we put in a few notes, so let's just make it C. Let's do just a simple Now with the TD-3, and it will be the same with a lot of Acid plugins, the velocity is really important. So mine's automatically, my notes just come in at 100, so let's bring them down to 0. When a note is hit above 100, it is an accent note. So if I do here, let's make that note a bit longer so we can actually fully hear the accent. Let's do it on a high one as well, it's a bit easier to hear these ones. All I done there was turn up the resonance. So on my TD-3 I've always got the distortion turned on. I'll show you really quickly. This is the accent. So you need to have the accent turned up or you're not going to get that squelch feeling. So it doesn't have to be all the way up, I will show you. So that's a good way to test it. If you just put your accents into the MIDI, and then as it's playing you just play around with the dial and where you're comfortable with the accent is there. Usually I'll have resonance all the way up, that's what gives it that kind of gritty sound. Distortion's also one that I'll just play with until I'm comfortable, so if I turn it all the way down. So probably here. Now the cutoff is your best friend, that's when you're going to hear those really cool automations, so if we just do that quickly. Envelope, so again these two really you just play around with them until you're comfortable with what you're hearing, so turn it all the way down. So probably here for me. Okay. So probably here. So that's simply what all of the dials do that you will be mostly using. Another thing that you can do is slides. So you've got accents and you've got slides. You will see those buttons on the right hand side of your TD-3. You've got accent and you've got slides. So the accent is these ones. Let's put in another accent somewhere just for some fun. Let's do it here. Make that a bit longer. Okie dokie, now a slide would sound like this. So let's put 2 slides in. A slide is basically so you're sliding from one note to the other, so it's not like a dun dun, it's more like a dum, if that makes any sense. So I'll just let you hear it. This really helps just give lots of movement within the acid line. It sounds like you're kind of playing more notes than you are. I'm just playing between 1 octave. That's another really good thing for when you're making acid lines. If you're struggling with putting the notes in itself, focus on 1 note, so C, and go between the octave, so the octave that you're on and the octave below. And then you can sometimes add in some other notes. So let's do maybe here. I don't really like that. Let's bring it down. The only thing you can't do with the TD-3 is when you're moving the cutoff and when you're moving any of the other dials and you hit record, it doesn't record in the automation. So the automation that you get from the TD-3 has to be done live, but you can't record it in when it's a MIDI channel. It needs to be audio and you need to record it in live. What you would do is get yourself an audio channel. Now where it says audio from, you want the audio to come from the acid. Let me just rename this. So audio from acid. And then that can be left how it is. When you click the record button, as you can see here, now it's taking all of the sound that's coming from this channel. As soon as I hit one of these clip buttons, it's going to record in this MIDI clip, and at the same time I can move the dials and record the automation live. It's a blessing and it's a curse. It's good because it doesn't sound as robotic, it's live, it's more fun, you know you've done it yourself, but when it comes to the session view and you click automation, there's nothing here that would let me automate the cutoff, the resonance, the distortion, nothing. So if you don't like what you've done, you need to go back and redo it. So that's the only thing about that. But I quite like it. As I said, it's not as robotic. So I will record this in and show you what I'll be doing during its recording. Awesome. And so here, as you can see, it's just an audio waveform. So here's your MIDI, keep that in there in case you want to change it. And then here's your audio. Now I'll show you the audio effects that I'll put in my acid channels. So if I type in acid, I've actually created my own effect rack. So if I drag this in, everything's there already. So I'll go through everything that I've got in detail. So I've got an auto filter here. This is for bringing in the acid if you don't want it to come in straight away. So this will be used for automation during the arrangement. This is the EQ that I use. Feel free to copy it, feel free to pause the video and copy it if you want. This is really just focusing on the bits that you really want to hear. Now a saturator, it's just your simple drag in saturator, and I've increased it by 4.6 decibels. I've got an overdrive. I've just put the overdrive in, I've not touched it at all. I've got a glute compressor in, utility is there, and you just click bass mono. This just means the stereo output. Obviously there's 2 lines there, so it means it's stereo. The utility changes that to mono. Acid chorus, so this is a chorus ensemble. I've got another auto filter there, that'll just be for further automation. I don't really know why that's in there, let's just take her out. And then I've got reverb, so this is how it is with my cut. Pre-delay, size, decay. I've not touched any of these ones here. Dry weight's 37%. So let's hear everything without. I'll keep the utility on because it won't make a difference. Okay, so let's hear it without anything. EQ. Saturator. Huge difference there. Overdrive. So yeah, that makes a massive difference, putting the overdrive in there. Just gives it that extra distortion and grittiness. I will be getting a distortion pedal at some point, but the overdrive does it for now. The compressor, you probably won't hear this too much. This is just squashing the sound and making sure that when the cutoff does get lifted, that it's not going, the volume's not going crazy and everything's kind of glued together and everything sounds equally the same. Chorus. And of course reverb. And that's it. So that is how I input my TD-3 into Ableton, and that is how you use your MIDI clips with Ableton as well. Makes it a little bit easier. Definitely, for me it's easier seeing the notes visually and being able to amend them this way than it is using the buttons on the TD-3 itself. I hope that's helped anyone that was looking for a little bit more insight on how to use that with Ableton, and I hope it's helped. Thank you so much. Bye!